So we're talking about complex trauma, CPTSD, and control issues. Because trauma survivors grow up in an environment where their parents may have had control issues, they may have been too strict, they may have been too domineering, they may have had too many rules, had punishments that were too harsh, they may have had inconsistent punishments, they may have been too hands off with the children, too neglectful, they may have abandoned the children emotionally or otherwise. So because there is either a lack of discipline and a lack of control, or there was too much discipline, too much control, uh, complex trauma survivors tend to struggle with this issue of control. Later, they'll find themselves in relationships where there are control issues again. Now, in the romantic relationships, they may have a romantic partner that is a straight abuser. This romantic partner may be physically abusive, may be aggressive. The romantic partner may just be very controlling when it comes to, I got to know where you are. I got to know what you're doing. I got to have tabs on you constantly. No, you can't go there. No, you can't wear that. And these things may progressively, this control may progressively manifest itself over time. And so at first, it may have seemed almost beautiful, like a loving thing, that this partner was so interested in you. And then over time, it progressed to where it was unsustainable. And you feel like you have to stifle who you are and what you want to be. One woman posted on social media, she said, I am getting ice after 5 p.m. And it was just her in her kitchen at her refrigerator where there's an ice dispenser getting ice. And she said, this is very special to me because while I was married to my husband, I was not allowed to get ice after 5 p.m. from our refrigerator dispenser. He had to have all the ice for his drinks. And so me and the children were not allowed to get ice after 5 p.m. We were not allowed to have ice trays. And so we couldn't make ice for ourselves. She goes on to explain. The whole way that her husband was running the household, it was too much control. So I want you to think about yourself. I want you to think about your relationships, yourself and your relationships. Are you someone who is controlling? Right? We have a term for that where we call someone very controlling a control freak. Are you someone that people could call a control freak? Or are you in a relationship with someone like that? In either case, this can be toxic, but I don't want you to feel shame around it. In fact, shame is one of the main reasons people become controlling. You see, because they feel less than, or they're afraid of feeling shame. And so they feel like if they can just micromanage other people, they can keep themselves from feeling that feeling of shame. Control issues are mainly motivated by fear. When people become very controlling or a control freak, it's because they fear that maybe they're not going to get their needs met, or they fear that another person is going to leave them, or they fear that they can't trust another person, or they can't, things won't be done right. And so they're motivated by their own perfectionism to be controlling. And so it could be that they don't want to get hurt, or they don't want to be abandoned. So it's really fear that's driving the control issues. Normally it's anxiety, right? And again, that fear that they're not going to get what they want or what their needs are, stemming back, of course, to their childhood. Could be that they feel abandoned, or they fear feeling abandoned. And so they're checking up constantly on their mate or their spouse or their children because they don't want anyone to run away from them or to get away from them. So they can start to micromanage. So they're not just giving you something to do, like, oh, can you please clean the kitchen? They want to micromanage what you're doing and how you're doing it. No, don't use that rag. You missed the spot, right? That's micromanaging, where instead of just being a leader to tell people what you need them to do and delegate the task, you are going all into detail and not allowing them to do it of their own volition and in their own style. You could be the type of person who tries to change other people. You try to change other people because you think that you know best. Or you could be the type of person who will give the silent treatment when someone doesn't do things according to the way you believe they should do them, or they don't behave in the way you think they should behave. And so you'll just ice them out and be silent in an effort to change their behavior. That's controlling. You may be the type to take over what people are doing. So you give your kids a task and they're working on the task to the best of their ability, but it's not good enough. So you jump in and you just start taking over. No, like this. This is how you do it. Or you end up doing your kids' homework yourself instead of just helping them to learn how to do the homework. Or you could be the type to give constructive criticism that's really just veiled, unsolicited advice. I'm just trying to help you out, just trying to give you some constructive criticism, but really you're trying to control them. You're trying to micromanage their life and the way they are. You want to change them. You could be the type that doesn't respect boundaries. Many trauma survivors have trouble when it comes to boundaries. Boundaries are rules that we make up. They're limitations that we create. And so if your child creates a limitation, do you respect it? If your husband or your wife creates a limitation, do you respect it? Your boyfriend, or do you feel like, what? How dare they put a boundary on me? And then you try to push through their boundaries and diminish it so that it's stamped it out and they're never going to use these boundaries on you again. When people are trauma survivors, they may feel trouble relaxing. So it's like they can never just sit down and chill. It's always like, I got to be up, I got to be doing something. And they may fear disorganization. So everything's got to be orderly. Everything's got to be done a certain way. It's got to look nice. And the shirts got to be crisp. And the books got to be lined up. Does any of this sound familiar? For some, they may feel like they cannot take no for an answer. So if they get no, it's like, no, I got to get it. I got to push through. Or you may use fear mongering if you're a controlling person. Fear mongering is your kid says, oh, I'd like to go do this. And then you tell them all of the fearful things that could possibly happen if they go and do that. And it's in an effort to control them, to dissuade them from what they originally wanted to do. That's controlling behavior. Or maybe use intimidation. If you're bigger in size or stature, try to control others. If you're using guilt to try to control others, if you're using shame, if you're using anger, all of those things are toxic. It's toxic efforts to manipulate other people. It could be someone who's huge on routines and rituals. Got to have your routine. It's got to go according to routine, and you have your rituals every morning at a certain time. You got to have your this and do things this way, and then every night you got to do, right? A lot of routine and rituals, too much of that can be seen as obsessive compulsive, right? Where you might create rituals that aren't even necessarily logical anymore. One man, every time he would leave his garage, and as he was closing his garage door, he felt he had to yell out some particular word, like bird or something like that. And so every time he closes the garage door, he just felt like he had to yell bird. It's not logical. But we, as trauma survivors, may have not felt in control as children. And so as a result, we may look for little things that we can control in our lives that may have started actually in childhood, and now it becomes illogical or obsessive compulsive later in life, where we're not doing things that really are necessary or make sense, but it makes us feel in control, or at least so we think. But ironically, since we're doing something that's illogical, we actually look out of control or insane. And so those aren't healthy ways of coping with the feeling of lack of control. You could be someone who feels like you always have to have a plan. And so you're always trying to plan every detail. No room for spontaneity. I have to have a plan, you say. I'm very big on plans. Some people will try to be a chameleon wherever they go. And their effort is to change themselves to blend in with whatever group they're around so that they can hide their shame, so that they can not stand out. They don't want you to know who or what they truly are, because they feel that they won't be accepted for who and what they truly are. Some people will feel like they just are trying to solve their anxiety through using these methods of control. But that's what's at the base. So if you think you're a controlling person, usually it's the fear, it's the anxiety that you're trying to manage. But recognize the irony, because in trying to manage your anxiety by being controlling, what you'll find is in reality, you're actually producing more anxiety for yourself, because you're trying to hyper control everything when it's not actually possible to control everything. And that's where we need to start if we want to fix our control issues. Now, other people, of course, have the opposite of all of that, because they just feel out of control. And that's what's named the victim mentality, right? The victim mindset, or the learned helplessness, is the belief that there is nothing you can do to impact your own future, because you don't have any control, you don't have any authority, and everything is just going to be done for you, and everyone else is just going to do it for you. And this also is a conditioning from growing up in that complex trauma household, and it's motivated by fear and it's motivated by shame. And so you have a give up attitude. You don't believe you can get your needs met, so you don't even try. So you may try to help other people and do what other people want you to do and manage their emotions and feelings, but you don't pay attention to your own emotions and feelings. You don't pay attention to your own needs. You don't try to get them met, because you don't believe you're in control. You don't have the problem of micromanaging things. You have the problem of not ever stepping up and taking authority. You lack leadership skills. You lack the feeling that you ever could be the leader. You don't try to give constructive criticism. You don't ever give any criticism. People ask you, hey, can you give me some criticism? And you go, I mean, I don't know. It's fine. It's fine. And then meanwhile, you go home and it's like, oh, it's very much not fine, right? In private, in your heart, it's very much not fine, but you told these other people that everything was just fine. Well, why don't you tell the people what you're really thinking? It's because you lack authority. It's because you believe that you're out of control. You're in learned helplessness. So whatever side you find yourself in on the spectrum, these can be solved, right? If you're having control issues because you're too controlling, or you're having control issues because you're not controlling enough, it can be solved. Now, some of you might say, I have a little bit of both. Sometimes I'm not controlling enough. I don't step up to find my own authority. And on the other hand, sometimes I'm too controlling in certain ways with certain things. Again, it's because you didn't grow up in an environment that was healthy, so you weren't given the healthy boundaries, or you were in a relationship so long where it wasn't healthy that you haven't learned to be able to find your power and to assert yourself and to respect where other people's boundaries are. So what do? Well, we have to change our beliefs and our way of thinking. Detrimental belief that will hurt us. I can control everything and it's best when I do. That's false. True belief that's constructive. I can't control everything, so I'm not going to try to control everything, but I can control some things. Switch your beliefs. If you're noticing you have that old detrimental way of thinking, switch your beliefs. Identify the lie in your old way of thinking. My needs won't get met if I don't control everything. Identify that that's a lie. My needs can get met if I relax. My needs can get met if I wait, if I'm patient. Or some feel my needs won't get met if I try to assert myself. Change the belief. My needs will get met if I assert myself. That's the beauty of being assertive. If you're a parent and you would like to do better in this issue of control, you want to learn about your authority and how to exert authority properly. And all of us are reparenting ourselves. So we all need to understand how to manage our authority properly. You see, when a person is in a position of authority, they're in a position to make rules and set limitations. The very definition of boundaries is to make a rule or to set a limitation. What needs to be seen and not overlooked is that as a leader, you must also make rules and set limitations for yourself. I'll repeat that. To be healthy in authority, to learn healthy control, to be a good leader, you must set rules and limitations for yourself as well. And so a healthy and authority parent will not say, nobody closes the door around here, and not allow their children to close the doors of their bedroom, for instance. A healthy and authority parent will actually put a limitation on themselves. And for instance, knock on a door that their children have closed. Well, it's my house. I shouldn't have to knock on any doors in my house. It's not what you have to do. It's what you're choosing to do. You're choosing to set a limitation on yourself so that your authority is healthy. Why is that so valuable? Why is it so vital and important that we do that? Well, simple. Our children learn their sense of self and their boundaries from how we exercise our authority. So if we plow over their boundaries and we don't respect their boundaries according to their age, then they don't learn a healthy association with boundaries, and they will later have issues, perhaps with complex trauma as a result, and with getting into relationships with people who don't respect their boundaries, or not respecting other people's boundaries in relationships where they become abusers themselves. But when you respect the boundaries that you create, when you create a limitation on the self, and you knock on a door, or you say, oh, I'm not going to read your diary. I'm going to let you have that privacy. So I'm going to afford you a certain amount of space or privacy, even though I technically have the ability, even though I may have the legal right to do certain things, I'm not going to insist upon that right. I'm going to set a limitation for myself. That is how we can be healthy in authority, healthy in control, setting a good pattern for the child. The child then learns, oh, I can have privacy. I can have privilege. That means that I am worthy of privacy. I am worthy of privilege. So now when they grow up and they go out into the world, they're able to express themselves, assert boundaries, because they believe they are worthy of the privacy. They believe they are worthy of the privileges because you showed them they are worthy of the privileges and the privacy. Because why? Because you set limitations for yourself on how much you invaded them. And so that's how they learn. And that's how we can learn as well. So we must set limitations on our own authority. Also, when you're parenting yourself, and this is important because so many trauma survivors have issues with control on how do I control myself with the food? How do I control myself and not lose my temper? How do I control myself on not drinking too much? How do I control myself? Place limitations on your own authority. Also, you must recognize where you have authority. And this is so important. When we don't recognize that we have authority over ourselves, we say things like, oh, I can't control it when it comes down to certain situations, right? So, hey, please don't raise your voice and yell and interrupt people. I can't control it. I can't control the impulse. Or when I see ice cream, I just have to eat it. I can't control it. I had to order the Oreos from GoPuff and have them delivered to my house, and I had to eat the whole pack because I can't control it. Okay, stop. Recognize first your authority as an individual, as a conscious being. The body is given to you as a gift. You are responsible for it. A good leader insists upon their responsibility, not their privilege, not their what they're entitled to. They insist upon their responsibility in any given situation. I'm responsible for the well-being of those whom are under my leadership. And so they make every decision with the mindset of benefiting those who are under their leadership. Likewise, someone who is a good leader to the self, who is a good parent to the self, makes every decision according to what is to the benefit of what they are leading, which is the self, including the body, including the mind, including the soul. It is your job to care for your entire self. You have the authority to do it. You have the authority to make the decisions, to say no, and to place limitations on your own authority. So you can say, I'm not going to think any violent thoughts. You can place the limitations on your own thinking. I'm not going to fix my mind on any disgusting, immoral thoughts. And so if something like that were to start to introduce itself to your mind subconsciously, you conscientiously shut it down and say, no, we're going to divert to thinking about something else. I'm going to reassign the subconscious a new assignment because what it's thinking about is detrimental. Sometimes we like to say, man, I wish I could just kill that person. But then when you do that, you're assigning the subconscious mind this immoral course to just start thinking about how it's going to do this immoral thing. As soon as you recognize that an idea, an immoral thought has come up, that is your opportunity as the conscious person to jump on top of that and say, no, that doesn't align with my values. That doesn't align with who I want to be. And in this way, we are now constructing, we are creating the ideal self. How? By stepping up into your place of authority and recognizing that you can say no to what you will fix your mind on. And you can redirect the thoughts. Because there are certain things that are not appropriate to think about, such as suicide, homicide. And so we can apply something that serious as well to eating the cookies and eating the ice cream. How? We set the limitations on our own authority. We say, you know what? It's not appropriate for me to have more than one bowl of ice cream or more than a handful of cookies. And so once I do that, I'm not going to do more because I don't believe that's an appropriate use of my power. You place limitations on yourself. That is self-control. But some survivors have said, but Roman, I can't do that because when I get dysregulated, when I feel upset, or when I'm in one mode, a certain mode, I cannot move or change it, and I can't control myself in that state. You don't understand. The state is a dysregulated state. Because the conscious mind is shut off and my brain is disintegrated. So what do? We feel like our brain just gets disintegrated and we don't know how we're going to control ourselves in a dysregulated state. Well, practice makes perfect, doesn't it? We have to teach ourselves the skills of controlling oneself, so that when we're in what would be triggering, what could dysregulate us, we're able to utilize our tools, such as stop, S-T-O-P, stillness, thoughtfulness, observance, and patience. In order to utilize that skill, we may need to practice at smaller times in our life. And so a good example is, imagine you have to go, or you would like to go and do volunteer work, but it's early in the morning. You look at your clock. Oh, I got to be there by 9 a.m. and it's 8 and I was up late last night. And you're going through this familiar scenario of mind over mattress. Do I have the ability to get out of my comfortable bed to go do something that would be beneficial to my life's purpose? To do something that's meaningful? Or will I just give in to the desire of the body? Will I just cave to the feelings of the moment? All right. Now, how can we put into practice our skills? In this case, we need to develop the ability to control the body, despite the fact that the body doesn't want to obey the mind. Because the mind says, hey, we should get up right now if we want to go join the volunteer effort. And the body says, I am not getting out of this bed. So how do we put the mind over the matter? Well, it can be very difficult for many survivors who haven't practiced this skill. They say, hey, I don't have executive function. Okay, well, put your executive in training. And here's what you can do as an exercise. You're in bed, you're stuck to the mattress, and you feel like you cannot get up, although you would like to get up. Start small. Blink your eyes. Say, do I have the ability to blink my eyes right now? Open, close. Do I have the ability to move my finger right now? Start moving your finger. Do I have the ability to just lift my arm up and let my arm back down? Now, you'll probably look weird to the person you're sleeping next to if you're sleeping next to someone, but don't worry about that. You need to learn this skill, this exercise. So you lift your arm up out of that bed, and then you let that arm fall back down. And then you do it again. And then you push your leg out from under the covers, and then you bring it back in. You will notice that you have the ability to control your body. It's very important that you teach the subconscious mind, I have the ability to control my body. Because when you keep saying, I can't, that will become your reality, because you are actually commanding your subconscious in that moment. So you say, I can't do it. And your subconscious will say, okay, she says we can't do it, so that's it. But when you say, oh, wow, I can move my finger, and I can move my arm, and I can push my leg out from underneath this mattress or underneath the covers, what else can you do? Well, I bet I could swing my body around and push both my legs out and sit up on my bed. And I bet now I can get up. At this point, now we've created momentum. Momentum is motivation. Once we start going in a certain direction, it gets easier. The reason we couldn't get up from the mattress is because the inertia, the momentum is to sleep, is to rest, because that's where we've been for the last 8 hours. Now you have the ability to get yourself up because you started to get yourself up. So create the momentum. Where? Start small. Start with the pinky. Move the hand, move the arm, move the legs. And you will start to see slowly through this process, I have control. The subconscious mind says, I have control. And what should we say when we speak to ourselves? Should we say, I can't? I can't do it because I'm disintegrated, dysregulated, and I have these fancy terms to describe my condition? Or should we say, I think I can? I think I can. I think I could. I believe I can. I can do it. I can do this. Just that phrase, I can. Use it when you throw in that last rep at the gym. Use it when you're trying to push those last few yards while you're running. Use I can, and your subconscious mind will obey because you are giving it a command, and it works for you. not the other way around. You must lead the body. Do not let the body lead you. You, the conscious being, are the person in authority. So step up into your place of authority. That is your rightful place. And command your body. Does that make sense? Likewise, if we need to set limitations on ourselves, because when someone gets us upset, we want to yell or we want to become violent. Again, we need to start very small. And so that's why we utilize the rule of 7 seconds. Can I just stand still for 7 seconds, despite the fact that I feel so angry, I feel so mad right now? Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can feel all the adrenaline going through my system. Wow, my heart is pumping and everything is just, oh, I'm so angry right now. 5, 6, 7. When my subconscious mind realizes that I have the ability to sit completely still for the 7 seconds, it may choose to continue to stay still. Focus on my blinking, focus on my breathing. And what'll happen? Well, as the adrenaline passes through the system, the body naturally regulates. When the chemicals regulate within the system, the emotions change. And when your emotional state changes, suddenly it becomes easier to stay in control, and you don't have to hit and you don't have to yell. You can do the same thing with food if that's the vice. You can look at the food, you can see the food in front of you, you can decide to wait 7 seconds before you just start digging in. While you're eating the food, you can pause 7 seconds before taking the next bite. Allow your body to communicate back to you. I'm done, I'm full, I'm satisfied, I'm satiated. Creating this connection with the self, allowing the body to communicate with you, the leader, and you, the leader, making the decisions. That's synergy with the self. That's harmony with the self. So you have the authority. You have the power. Believe in yourself and exercise it accordingly.